I'm going to start by loading some data into R, and I'm going to get that data from the textbook. In Launchpad, I'm going to go to the ebook, select Chapter 2, 2.1, Scatter Plots. For your assignment, you are going to want to load this data right here by clicking this button. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to use the education spending and population data. So I'm going to click this button, File Format R. When it downloads, I click it, and for me, it opens up into R directly, but you may need to find the file yourself and tell RStudio to open it up. Notice that the data shows up over here. We have 50 observations, 11 variables. If I click this arrow, I'm going to see all of the variables in the data set. The next thing I should do is open up an R script. Go File, New File, R script. Now all of the commands that I want to do to the data set I'm going to type into here and can easily be saved for later. Now, although the data has been loaded into R, the variables aren't accessible by name. To load them into memory, we need to use the attach command for the entire data set. So I'm going to type attach and in brackets the name of the data set that I want to load into memory. It's got quite an annoying name, but when I start to type it, R is going to figure out what I'm trying to do and fill in the blank for me. Now to execute this command, I make sure the cursor is active on the line that I want to execute, and I click the Run button. Now all of these variables have been loaded into memory. The next thing I want to do is create a histogram for the variable spending. To do that, I type the hist command, and in brackets the variable I want to create a histogram for, spending. And again, click the Run button. Then we see the histogram pop up over here. Now, you may notice this doesn't look very nice, or at least it doesn't tell us very much about the distribution of education spending. There's quite a few things I can do to make this histogram look better, the most important being changing the number of breaks. So I'm going to try, 16 breaks and see what that looks like. Okay, so that gives us a much better idea of what this distribution looks like. It's skewed to the right, there's quite a few outliers. The next thing I want to do is calculate the minimum first quartile, median, third quartile, maximum, mean, and standard deviation for one of the variables. Again, for this example, I will use the spending variable. Luckily, I can get most of those statistics using the summary command. In brackets, I type the variable that I want to calculate the statistics for, spending. And again, I click the Run button. Now, this has produced most of the things we need for Part C of the assignment. The only thing that's missing is the standard deviation. For that, I need to use the SD command, and in brackets, I again put the variable I want to calculate the standard deviation for. Let's examine the relationship between population and spending by creating a scatter plot. I'll use the plot command. The first variable I type will appear on the x-axis and the second variable on the y-axis. Click the Run command, and there we have it. Let's give our scatter plot a title, and let's also change the x and the y-axis labels. Notice that I'm separating each of these commands using a comma. We can also change how these dots look in the scatter plot by altering the value for the PCH parameter. The default is 1. Let's try something else. 2. We get triangles instead. Some people like 16, where the dots have been filled in. Google RPCH to see what all the different things look like. Now, let's add some color to the plot. COL equals 1, that's black. 2 is red. 3, very nice, green. There's lots of colors. You can Google to see which number corresponds to which color. Now, a useful thing to do is to use the value of a different variable to choose the color for each data point. Note that we have the state variable, which is a factor or a qualitative variable. It tells us which data point belongs to which state. So Alabama corresponds to 1, Alaska corresponds to 2. We can use this information so that Alabama will have the color that corresponds to 1, which is black. Alaska will have a color corresponding to 2, which was red, and so on. So let's see what happens when we type state in here and redraw the plot. So now all of these colors are chosen based on this state factor variable. The last thing I'm going to do is create a legend that explains what each of these which state each of these colors correspond to. So I need the legend command. And the first thing I want to choose is where to put that legend. Bottom right seems appropriate. Then I pick the actual words that will appear in the legend. I'm using the combine command. I'm going to combine a bunch of words together, or a bunch of string variables, and each string variable goes in quotation marks. The first state is Alabama. The second state is Alaska. If I want to see what the other factor levels are, I can click this button in the top right here, and it will display the data in a sort of like a spreadsheet. So color 3 is going to correspond to Arizona, color 4 to Arkansas, and so on. Let's go back to the script, and let's fill in a few more of those states. Arizona and Arkansas. I'm not going to go through all 50 of them. Let's stop there. Now I want to set the colors in the legend. I will have 4 states in here, and each state, well, Alabama corresponds to 1, Alaska to 2, 3, 4. So I want to choose the colors to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now a quicker way of doing that is to use 1:4. I want the characters in the scatter plot to match the characters in the legend, so I need to choose PCH to be equal to 16 in the legend as well. And finally, I'll choose a title for the legend, state. Let's hope this works. It did not. Let's try putting this bottom right in quotations. And there we go. Okay, so for your assignment, you only have 4 different fuel types, so you'll want to do something very similar to what I did here. Now, to save your scatter plot so that you can put it in your assignment, click the export button right here, save as image. You can choose an image format, you can choose the directory that you want to save it in, and you can give it a file name. Once you've done that, you should be able to import it into your assignment 1. Finally, save your work. Make sure the script window is highlighted. Click File, Save As, and you're done.